We are very, very aware that we are the last obstacle before a potential glass of beer.
30 minutes.
30 minutes,
30
okay.
minutes.
Okay. So I'm really pleased to basically moderate the second panel. So perhaps you can start to introduce yourself.
Sure, very quick. Ling from China Mobile, and I started my open source career with network automation, and also as a member of Zhang Hao's team. And now I'm moving towards artificial intelligence. So we are just started, I think, two proposals at ETSI NFV, which is one is large language model based math services, and the other is trying to identify the use cases for compute and network convergence, which is quite aligned with what we have already presented. Thank you.
So I'll repeat myself. I'm Vuk Gornic, Deutsche Telekom Technik Network Department of Deutsche Telekom Group in Germany, in charge for a cloud native platform as a platform lead.
I'm Philippe for NTT DOCOMO, and I'm in charge of the development of cloud infrastructures and orchestration systems. Thank you.
Okay, so when we prepared the panel session with them, basically the idea was not to repeat the same question that we have on the first panel, but perhaps to explore, I would say, new dimensions. So the first one, where I'm pretty sure the audience want to have your feedback, is perhaps more about security and compliance. So with the shift towards more and open and distributed networks, according to you, what are the key security challenges that you can foresee? Who want to start first?
Okay, I can take the challenge. It's a very important and very nice aspect to discuss about, because practicing the open source, not only open source, but practicing the cloud native network transformation, we have noticed that the security aspect have not been addressed, or was not first thought when we are getting the software to work with. I mentioned in the presentation we are seeing quite some challenges in adopting the CNFs to the stronger cloud platform security posture, the security policies, the recommendation from the CIS benchmarks and so on, which we by default enforce and turn on, are even the network policies, which are standard in the IT world, are creating difficulties for the off-the-shelf CNFs to comply. Now, we have to do all these things because, as you said, Philippe, it is a more open platform. We have also big debates, do we need a firewall in the network, or we can rely on the zero trust network concepts. And when you have a zero trust network concept, and when you shift everything left, then you really need to rely on your end point to be able to protect itself, to be able to comply and to fend off any potential attacks. So we are seeing as a challenge. This is a homework telco industry still needs to do. The assumption to have a platform fully controlled as a black box that is not accessible is not anymore in place, and we need to work together step by step to address it.
If you want to comment?
Yes, I think security is a much important thing for the cloud native. For example, there are many communication through the TLS, so we need to care about the certification management and software update. Lots of security aspects to be considered for the long-term support. And of course, in the system itself, so we need to upgrade or apply the patches, security patches, to maintain the secure environment. And in the container environment, there are lots of the isolation. The isolation is very weak compared to the VM technologies. So that's why we need to consider the lots of details of the how to secure our network system.
Maybe do you want to compliment on?
Yes, I agree with what these two gentlemen have just said. I think the problem is that we are breaking a black box into layered environment. And it's kind of like not only assuming that the black box would be secure and wholly responsible by the vendor. So that is no longer the rule. So we have to actually also cast security requirements to the infrastructure as well as has to secure the communication between the infrastructure and the application on the top. So what we see is we need standardization, we need specification, not only from CGPP, who has a long history working on their security framework, but which is based on the black box manner. Now we need security requirements from the infrastructure to secure the communication and most importantly, the separation of different applications. So that is why we have been working, I think, extensively at 3GPP, at GSMA, and also lately this year's at ETSI NFV, working on those distributed, secure, infrastructures. The goal is to, specify atomized and server, a microservice-based like security services that could be combined and orchestrated based on the application's requirements. And it may span different virtualization technologies depending on the separation, that might be needed.
Okay, thank you. When I have security in my mind, the next word most of the time is, I would say, regulation. And for instance, Yoshi, I don't know, I have absolutely no clues about regulation in Japan, but when you're moving into a public cloud infrastructure, like basically the presentation that you did, is regulation or constraint on regulation have been a question, and I would be also very interested to have the thought of Fook and Lingli on the same topic.
Yeah, that is a good question for us. Actually, if we use the public cloud for the core network system, so we need to consider a lot of aspects like, of course, the firewall, isolation, network isolation, segregation, and the user data. So we need to consider it. But in the governmental cloud, it's running on the hyperscaler cloud already, and we don't care about if the hyperscaler cloud provide a secure environment for the customers. So that will be enough. And also for the telecom requirement, so we have a strict regulation to provide a high available mobile core network system to the customers. So in terms of this requirement, we need to consider the highly reliable design for the core network system. So that is our mission to provide, and that is a very difficult situation. Of course, sometimes the hyperscaler cloud sometimes gone due to the network outage or the security outage. So we need to consider such the critical situation even in the communication provider to the customer.
Okay.
So moving towards Europe, I think we have a bit of over-regulation in general, but when it comes to cloud and then regulation in the telco environment, there is one aspect where we have a struggle when we look at the public cloud, and this is this back channel actually that is in many of the solutions, including solutions like Outposts and edge instances and so on. There is always an aspect of a back channel, the phone home functionality, which is needed out of technological reasons, but which always poses concerns. Is it a channel that could turn down your network in case of geopolitical turbulences and then issues? Is there somebody outside of the country in which you are deploying, which has a power and possibility to do the blackout? So from that perspective, we evaluated a number of public cloud offerings, even on-prem offerings, and this was always a stumbling block. Now, we decided, and we are running fully on-prem in-house platform, so this is not even the hybrid cloud option, but we have in terms of regulation, we have some of the obligations like to prevent essentially and to implement the policies even on the on-prem environment to block or to minimize possibility of the bad actor coming into the network and making some things and so on, because it's considered critical infrastructure. It is much more sensitive than the IT workload, which is in our case already massively in the public cloud. So that's probably the differentiation. We are working on it, and as I mentioned, the shift left approach in security is also addressing the regulatory concerns so that we have maximum security with the least let's say, cost and then overhead.
Thanks, Rick.
Yes, for us it is quite simple because we are not considering, building our telecom cloud on hyperscalers. So we are building like our own private clouds, and Chinese operators are actually offering their also public cloud services. So for the near future, I think at least for the foreseeable future, we won't see, public cloud. We won't be building telecom cloud on top of third-party hyperscalers. So that would make our case quite simple.
Okay, fine. So now let's switch to the second focus. So that will be much more about another side of the coin. I would say it's about interoperability and standardization. So I would be curious to understand how much you are basically observing vendor interoperability evolving. Is there a momentum? And I would also understand what's your thought about the horizontal model approach that have been shared among all the presentation, I guess, about how much basically the network function vendor landscape is supporting or engaging to this direction, and what can it bring as, I would say, challenges for them. Philippe, do you want to start first?
Yes, I'll start with the shortest version, I believe. So perhaps I'm a little bit pessimistic, in this regards. So for us, we only work with major service providers because we value our infrastructure as a very critical ones. And until now, I don't see that there is a momentum, and they are actually moving towards the cloud native paradigm. And to be frank with you, our network, telecom cloud network is now operating in a two-layer disaggregated manner. So it might need even longer, way to go for us to figure out, for container-based like VNF, or either it would be containerized network function or cloud native network function, whether or not it will be operated in a fully decoupled manner. I think these are still, open issues for us. So we would, I'm so glad to hear that a lot of our fellow service providers, at least from Europe, are actually aligning their voices and calling out for cloud native transformation, which personally I believe would be, a much more economic way for us to spend so many, expenditures in building such an infrastructure. At least we are not counting on hyperscalers in China. So by having those network functions moving towards a real cloud native manner, I think it would also be providing us as a telecom cloud infrastructure operators to be open up in these infrastructures truly to third-party applications that could be run, across that cloud continuum. Otherwise, it won't be sustainable for us to actually investing so much money and just for so narrow market.
Thanks.
The interoperability, I think it is, in terms of another definition of interoperability, is what telcos and telco ecosystem is champion of. The interoperability and compliance to the standards, and if you have a different network functions that they can speak same language. So this is what we mastered many years ago. However, the horizontal cloud approach and disaggregation in this sense opened the new fronts in interoperability, where we are far away of reaching the mature level where the interoperability can be taken as granted, in opposed to how it's today in the 3GPP or other standards. This is the interoperability between the network function, CNF, and the underlying infrastructure. Everybody mentioned also in the CNF test suite, there is really effort to move forward with that. The vendors are preferring to have interoperability with their own choices. So this is where we are completely in a different position as opposed to our standards. So I think we have shown to be able to standardize and to also achieve a high interoperability, and I don't see why we wouldn't do that in the disaggregation. Some interesting and probably justified phenomena that are appearing. Take any two major service providers or CNF providers and try to put them in the same cluster. No way. Even if you provide separation, even if you provide isolation, Kubernetes is not known for multi-tenancy, for a hard multi-tenancy. So we are solving that by, for example, multi-cluster approach, in which say, okay, this is a service provider 1 cluster, this is service provider 2 cluster, and they deploy their VNFs in there, and they have interoperability on the telco CNF interface level. But still, to certify and to validate and to have interoperability with variety of the platforms, it will take some time. The best chance we have is to make them interoperable with the upstream and upstream-driven design. Silva as a reference point could be one of the options, but this is where we couldn't shy away from also mentioning the versions of Kubernetes API and so on. So that's homework to do for us.
So that is a very difficult question because so the standardization. So we need to find the merit of the defining the standards and using the open source. Of course, we provide a thin layer or abstraction layer, so we can freely work on that work. But the development cost is too much, even in some orchestration system or infrastructure management. So that's why we are trying to find the good balance between the open source and standardizations. And of course, the interoperability is always matters, even in the small changes or the combination of the components like the Kubernetes, the libraries and the Docker file, lots of components there. So we need to think about how to realize the easy development. In my understanding, of course, if you dive into the details, the lots of flexibility you can get, but the interoperability aspect it's a nightmare of combinations. So of course the CI/CD process solves a lot of things, but not enough. And so that's why we need to make a consensus among the operators and the vendors as a whole industry to realize an easy integration and a small integration for the commercial deployment and sustainable upgrade roadmap.
Thank you, Yoshi. Think you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add just a thought. The landscape and ecosystem is so complex that we are most likely de facto not be able to agree on anything. So the interoperability based on agreement will probably not be possible. But what we need to think of, and where is a chance to get into or to reach the goal we want to have with interoperability, which is when I take a workload, when I take a network function, put it in there, it's able to work with the other parts of ecosystem. We need to think more about the continuous testing and continuous interoperability. It's something Michal mentioned in his slides, continuous validation in as realistic scenario as possible to detect the drifts in interoperability, and this has to be augmented or complemented by the ability to resolve and remove the drift, which is this agile way of keeping the system in flow or in flux.
Okay. Thank you. So I will make a combo with the question 3 and 4 because if you want to have one question from the audience, and if you can have, I would say, short answer, it will be extremely very good. The next question is about emerging technology. What emerging technologies do you believe will have the most impact, according to you, in the next decade? Or I can say it in another way. If you have a magic wand and you have one shot, what do you think need to be solved first from technology standpoint? And in bonus, I would love to understand if you have some plan for generative AI into your network workloads and for which kind of services you foresee the deployment. Who want to start first?
Okay, I'll try to be short. There were questions, I think, during our presentation regarding large language models, how deep it will be embedded in our network. Actually, where I'm from, currently within the large language model team for China Mobile, and we are building the foundation model, not only for network, but also, for another, I think, dozens of different verticals. So what we did is actually, to take the foundation model and integrate it with, like the data sets that we get from our partners, and that is dozens of like nation-owned Chinese enterprises. In that way, we built a foundation that would not, enable the network operation or customers' experience improvements for our telecom cloud, but also, we are collaborating with other verticals like energy, like education, and also medical care. And so zooming a little bit regarding our network operation and, organization, I think there was a question about top 3 applications that we are working on with large language models. The first one is actually currently out for internal, like pilot, which is actually smart customer caring, and which also providing like a virtual assistant, doing recommendations for our customers. And this is like top 1. And I think the second one is that we are also building like an interactive AI assistant that would help our operational staff, when they are trying to dealing with on-site tasks. So that is helping us, to increase our operational efficiency. And the third one, I would say, would be, is that we are working with other service providers and trying to, providing with them this adapted model. So we're calculating those general purpose like, language interpretation, intent interpretation, and also those kind of like general purpose. So we are opening it up with other service providers. For example, those who would be, interested in building similar applications with their own domain data sets in their application scenarios, but would not have the resources to build their own foundation model. So that is also the front lines that we are exploring.
Okay, thanks so much. Vous, Kyoshi, what's your thought on what do you do with the magic wand?
Probably we don't need magic wand or a bit of it, but I expect and estimate that we're going to see a lot of AI, including Gen AI, applied in operations of the cloud infrastructure and telco. The complexity and cognitive load is simply so big that soon there will be organic need for that. So this is one thing which I'm expecting to proliferate in the next couple of years. Deutsche Telekom is partnering with the South Korean telecom on developing a domain-specific AI and large language model. So out of that, we probably would expect something. More on the infra part, we are going to have a need to process and compute a lot of AI based workloads, and there I think we are going to see the 800 gig in the data centers very soon. And one of the promising things are the neural networks on the chip for the networking with some generic inference capabilities that could be used to make traffic decisions that were not possible so far on a linear logic. So I expected this to happen, or would like to have a magic wand for that. Plus, on a cloud side, the DPUs or the what comes next, formerly called smart next, to couple that and to enable the next phase of growth.
Yoshi, that's what for you.
Smart so that matters always for telecom cloud because lots of traffic we need to processing, and we are still in the behind from the hyperscaler cloud because they are developed their own smart NIC. So we need to catch up the huge gap between the hyperscaler cloud and telecom cloud.
Thanks so much. I'm looking at the audience. I don't know if some of you have one question before we stop. Okay.
Just one last question, and after AI, I would love to ask also a question about humans. With that transition towards the cloud-native telco, what is the impact on your organization as a service provider? Meaning, are your people in operation now moving from being network expert on CLI to DevOps? And if so, how do you do that?
The short answer, because I guess that anyone here wants to perhaps move to the next party. So try to make the answer as quick as you can.
One answer from experience, the fusion helps, not just transforming the people who used to work with the traditional technologies, but combining them and fusing with the people who come with a completely other background, like Philippe, and mindset. And in this fusion, the transformation happens much nicely and much nicer and much faster.
I think think now we're not that automated in terms of DevOps because we have like a longer term for upgrades. But we do set up dedicated teams. One is for like a telecom cloud integration when we are building that infrastructure, and the other is actually for a telecom cloud operation, which is separated from the original ones, which would be dedicated to applications and domain-specific application operation. And I had like made a survey on how big that team goes. It's actually that being together with what we already traditionally managing our core network is quite doubled as a size. So you can imagine that our operational staff is the number operating now telecom cloud is doubled than we traditionally have, only managing the core network applications. And also for AI, which is the team that I'm currently in, we are actually trying to make AI application within network operations scalable, which means that instead of it like development applications in specific algorithms to each of the applications, which might be different from branch to branch, from application to application, we are actually building a platform which support ML ops procedures. And those operation staff, they are actually transforming their skill sets to be some of them like data scientists serving their own application development. So it's now we're forming like AI ops closed loop right now. Sorry,
No. It was super interesting. Thanks so much for your feedback. Yoshi.
Yeah, I believe in the power of the human. Everything is feasible. I think even in the automation or the DevOps side, the human need to change.
Okay. Thanks so much. I think that we are about to end the day, so please, if you can bring a round of applause for our panelists.